Paul. Yes.
Yeah, let's go ahead and say yeah.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Your Creative Journey Live. I am Kevin Gregg. Paul, who are you?
I'm still Paul Carganella.
Well, of course you are. And of course, we've got James Arnold Taylor with us. Hi, James.
Hello
Welcome.
there. I should say hello there as Obi-Wan Kenobi, I guess. Yes.
I can't tell you how happy you've just made a whole bunch of people that are watching this right now. Here's an interesting thing when we do this thing live, right? Like there's a 6 second delay. So it's like, I got to make sure that it catches up. And of course we've been getting ads and stuff that come up. So like the first few seconds, it's like this weird thing, but hello, welcome. And welcome to all of our YouTube folks that are on there. Look who's here tonight. We've got Craig's out there. Producer Craig's on there. Kelsey, hi. Oh my gosh. Look at these guys. These are Angelica. Glad to have you here. Dari's here. Diana's here. These guys are super happy to have you here. James, couldn't be happy enough to have you on the show with us.
Thanks so much. It is a privilege and an honor to be here.
I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to jump right into the show because we want to get as much with you. I've already let James know how we start out our show. We usually talk a little bit about what's going on with the week. So we'll just dive in there. Paul has already given just a heads up for our YouTube listeners. Paul has already given us the heads up. Jamie is out there serving the great city of Los Angeles, doing her duty. Everly is at home watching Noah. So we don't know. We've had Noah show up on the show before without pants on. So what do you?
He should be sleeping at this point, but right. We'll see.
He should. Fortunately, it won't be. James, a couple of weeks ago, my son Maddie was cooking and for his girlfriend here, and right in the middle of the show, fire alarms went off twice.
So yes, of course.
So what are you going to do?
Well, if it makes y'all feeling better, I'm not wearing any pants either. So.
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah. All
right. Well, it's a whole different show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, let's dive into it. Paul, you're going to introduce us. Okay, buddy?
So I just hit record. We're good?
I think, thanks for doing that, because I literally got to double check that I've got everything recording, which I think we're good to go. All right, here we go. Here's our audio podcast part in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another week of the Your Creative Journey podcast. I'm Paul Carganella.
And I am Kevin Gregg, and we're so glad to have you here with us. This is the show that is designed to inspire you so that you take action with your creative work, whether you're an actor, writer, singer, dancer, musician, painter, hula hoop artist. What else, Paul? What else do you think they could be?
Kite maker, glass blower, domino extraordinaire.
That could be something. It would be good. Anyway, this is the show that's designed to help you and inspire you so that you take action with your work. And we're so happy tonight. We've got an incredible guest with us. He's a talented voiceover actor, James Arnold Taylor. Welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you here with us.
Thank you. And as my character, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I always start with, hello there, because for some reason, everybody loves that.
Well, they do. How can you not? I saw you a couple of weeks ago on Instagram. I think you did like a Western version of.
I did, yeah. I think Howdy Y'all or something like that.
That would be pretty neat to see Alec Guinness do a version of that. But anyway.
It's one of those weird things, Alec Guinness did, hello there, come here, my little friend, yes. And then Ewan McGregor had his moment in the third film where it's hello there to Grievous, and it's just taken off. So it's this gif or meme or whatever, everybody loves it. So now they always ask me to say it too. So.
Well, why not, man? It's such an honor to be able to do that. Now, I was telling James at the beginning of every show, we always start off every show finding out how everybody was this week. What was the best thing that happened for your week? James, please feel free to jump in this conversation. I always put Paul on the spot with this.
Yeah.
Paul, what was the best thing that happened this week for you, buddy?
Well, since I know you like to steer away from politics on this show,
I do.
I have to say that the best thing that happened to me this week was putting up my Christmas tree. We got it up yesterday, and the house just feels so much more joyful.
Yeah. Wow. I'll tell you what, man, there's something else. I was in our I was walking around the neighborhood this week, and they had not only had their Halloween lights up, but they also had a Christmas tree up at the same time. And the minute that it flipped over to Christmas, like all of the Halloween decorations were gone. James, you already have your Christmas stuff up at all, or what do you think?
No, but I noticed in our neighborhood where we have a lot of people that do a lot of Halloween stuff, the next day it was all gone. And now people are already setting up for Christmas. And that's never happened before. And I'm guessing maybe because it was a Saturday and then Sunday, it's like, well, what else are you going to do? So everybody took it all down already on Sunday. But we have the tree getting ready. But no, it's early this year. I think everybody's ready for it. I
Yeah.
have not started yet, though.
No, I think I'm probably going to do it a little bit early this year because it just feels good. I tend to, especially during this time of the year when it starts getting dark and afterwards, I like having some lights up. It just makes me feel good. So there you go.
I think it's been coming since, you know, the whole lockdown started. I remember when like everybody was that first everybody shut down and everyone was like serious about not leaving their house. I wrote to my friend Karen Sharp, who's one of the DJs on Coast 103. They do the Christmas music every year. And I said, you guys should start playing Christmas music just to like lighten the mood. And she was like, Paul, you have no idea how many people are calling, writing in and asking us to do that. And she said, but we just can't because like people are dying and like, why would we have so, and I think it's just been like one of those things where like the gates drop and everyone who's just been waiting for Christmas is like, let's get it up now.
But this was one of those years where if Christmas in July could have been the biggest thing ever. And I think you saw it happen a little bit more on television, right? With people just going, let's, please.
Well, we had taxes in July, didn't we? So, you know, I mean, couldn't we?
Right.
Crazy, man. Well, good, Paul. I'm glad that happened for you in your house. So,
thank you. I made it happen. I made my own fate over here. But Kevin, what was the best thing of your week?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. Just trying to think about it this week. You know, I will tell you this. This last week, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I'm going to sound like a broken record on this every week because I literally turned off on Sundays. I've been using it as my Sabbath. I've been literally shutting off my phone entirely. And honestly, Paul, it's a thing where the entire day I have it off till about 4 or 5 o'clock. And it's literally become, I might watch something on television, but I've been like picking up a book again. I read The Hobbit every once in a while. I read a little bit of Sherlock Holmes, you know, it's just, there's something that is so refreshing about it. And fortunately, you know, we've had these moments where we've gone on these long walks in the neighborhood, which have been really cool. And a lot of just like a lot of discussion in our family. There's been, just like a lot of healing discussion that's been happening in our family, which is a good thing. And I'm going to tell you this, 2 things specifically, they're going to pop up. I was telling James before we started, and I think I mentioned this last week on the show. I watched that documentary, The Social Dilemma on Netflix. And I made a decision this week. I took Twitter off my phone, and I can't tell you how much peace I had the last couple of days. Now I use Twitter as sort of a thing where I will like check in for news or other stuff like that. And of course it's not easy in this industry because you have to, you know, you're usually doing updates or status updates. I will tell you, like the first couple of hours, it was like, you know, coming off of a drug. I kept wanting to get it. But I will tell you, not having it available on my phone, it's not like I've gotten rid of the account, but not going to it has been so peaceful for me. And as a result of that, we had your friend Scott Damian on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I have been in this, I've been talking about this on the show. I've been in a little bit of a fog the last few weeks where they've been sort of dealing with some, you know, just heaviness and depression and just trying to get through it. Right. And I had this moment today where I finally did a little bit of my writing that I've been working on a book for a while, and I finally just got the rust off the bicycle. Oddly enough, I had picked up part of Stephen Pressfield's Turning Pro, right? And there he was recounting something that he written in The War of Art.
One of my favorite books.
Fantastic book, right?
Yeah.
And
really
he was
book, yeah.
It's super important. Producer Craig, please put that in the notes if you can. Producer Craig is on our YouTube stream, The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield. He literally talks about this time when he was in New York and he had been he'd been doing taxi stuff and he's making $20 a night. And it's just, he hadn't been writing for years. He had 10 days worth of dishes in the sink. And then he just had one night where he just said, he just busted out the Smith and Corona. He worked on it for 2 hours of stuff, and he knew it was all going to be stuff that he was just going to throw in the trash can. Yeah. But he went back to the dishes and he was working on the dishes for about 10 minutes and he found himself whistling. And he went, oh, I know that may have been junk that I wrote, but the fact is I just cracked it. And he described that as the moment that he turned pro for himself. And I'm going to tell you, I read that this morning, and there was a part of that was very inspirational for me as I sort of just got the rust off the bicycle with this thing I've been doing and trying to get through this fog and just not touching the Twitter and going for these walks and doing the writing today. I even texted Scott today and just said, I wrote today, buddy. So anyway, that was a great thing that happened for me this week.
Awesome.
So
yeah, keep it going. Keep it going.
I will. James, how about you, buddy? What was the best thing that happened to you this week?
Well, we've had in our neighborhood, they threw this at us on top of everything that's been going on in the world.
Okay.
10 days before it all started, they decided they're going to redo all the roads in our neighborhood.
Okay.
And literally rip them up down a foot and a half down to the dirt.
Okay.
And
like a foot and a half, like that deep.
All the concrete down to dirt.
Oh boy.
And they told us this 10 days before they started. So they gave us no warning. And I, of course, I'm in my studio here and I record.
Oh no.
How I do everything. So we had not just jackhammers, but steamrollers, and forklifts, literally ripping up the street in front of our house for the last 3 weeks.
And, oh no! Wait a second. This is the best thing that happened to you?
No, well, see, I'm getting there.
He's getting to the good part.
My wife has been amazing. She's my manager, and she somehow, by the grace of God, managed to get these guys quiet for like 4-hour chunks at a time while I did my recording sessions for video games and stuff, which was. It was unbelievable, and they were very, easy to work with. I was giving them autographs of Obi-Wan Kenobi as thanking them and stuff. But it all settled. They finished most of the work now, and this weekend we had like the first time. In fact, Scott Damian, who we were talking about, was over here. We were working on a project the day that the whole house was shaking, literally shaking.
It's crazy, right?
But so this weekend was the first calm in the storm.
Oh.
And the other thing was we couldn't go out. So like unless we wanted to park our car about a 15-minute walk away, because they did all the streets at once.
Wow.
And then you had to walk to the car. And so going grocery shopping on certain days, we were literally trapped in the house after we've already all been locked in.
Yeah.
Holy smokes,
so this weekend
man.
We were able to just go out on our street again and everything and go for walks again because we couldn't. So we just managed to just do that. And then the other thing we did, which was really neat, was we showed my daughter Singing in the Rain and The Sound of Music last night.
Come on.
And I got to tell you, those two movies, some of my childhood favorites.
Yeah.
But Gene Kelly, I mean, never will you find a more masculine example of dance, which is, often looked at as a very beautiful feminine thing. It's a beautiful thing to watch a man in such control of his body doing this dance and singing and dancing and everybody having fun in both of these films, and showing these to my 15-year-old daughter, who was like, there's no CG in that? No. They're doing that for real.
Wow.
There's no voice double in that? Nope. No. That's his voice. That's her voice. It was wonderful to show her, just what movies were about.
Oh yeah.
And so even though we had the ability, that's the long story of it, we had the ability to go outside, and we did. We had a wonderful time outside this week for the first time. But also once we came in and went, let's watch some movies and, do some popcorn and have fun together as a family, it was like life was normal again.
Oh.
And so
Good.
Yesterday was a pretty neat day in that.
That's amazing.
That's great.
Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun to have those moments of, number one, which I think we've all been going through this season, of having these moments of realizing how precious those things are that we took for granted, right? Mm-hmm. Like that moment of like, when we finally get together with family members, or to be able to hug and hold family members that we haven't been able to do for a long time, or have this moment with your, this is the cool thing when we're able to show a younger generation of like, you want to see something amazing? It's so funny that you're talking about like, wait, she's not singing for double when Debbie Reynolds' character is singing for the other character in
Yeah,
that.
that was the brilliant part of it too. Yeah.
But you're so right. I mean, and that, that is a movie that oddly enough, and I had read this somewhere, that was a movie that was like not supposed to work. That was a movie in which I believe that the movie studio literally had a ton of rights to different songs, and they figured out how to string them all together. So yes. So that it wasn't like they wrote that movie and said, oh, we'll do this song, this song. No, it was literally a whole bunch of different songs. And they said, let's figure out how to make this. And the other thing, to your point, James, with Gene Kelly, that Singing in the Rain scene.
I know what you're going to say. Yes.
Please tell the story, please.
He was sick as a dog. He had like a 103 temperature or something.
That's correct.
And he did it over and again and again. And you would never know that man was dying of, just a terrible cold or flu at the time.
Yes.
When he did the most famous, probably arguably one of the most famous dance scenes in the history of film.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Take a look at that. If you can't find that online, and take a look at that scene, and you talk about the definition of like masculinity and somebody going, let me do this, let me be a pro, let me show up. There's a man sick as a dog, bringing it all,
And then also like Donald O'Connor doing Make 'Em Laugh. So if you want to really laugh, but also see just an amazing performer and be inspired and feel good. Like my daughter was rolling on the floor. She was literally just laughing, loving it all. And I just thought, when was the last time you were able to turn on a movie and just kind of do that now? So it's really neat. I recommend people do that. Find those
Please. Absolutely. Well, tell you what, Paul, I'm going to turn this over to you for the first part so that you can start asking James part of what his journey was, because I've got some specific questions I got to ask James as we get into this a little bit deeper. So go for it, brother.
Well, let me just say thank you again for being on the show. And it is a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to spend some time with you here. I have to apologize. I don't know a whole lot. As a casual Star Wars fan, I'm very familiar with the movies, but I haven't dug into the animated stuff much at all. But since we're just kind of getting to know each other, I like to do this whenever Kevin lets me come out of my shell and
it's true. I'm terrible. I just talk and talk and talk. And Paul's me. Can I?
Kevin, let me finish. I like to just find out. I like to start from the very beginning. James Arnold Taylor, born and raised
in Santa Barbara, California.
Okay.
In 1969. And that means I'm an old man now. But I was always the shortest kid in my class. And I never really got bullied because I always was doing voices. Ever since I was 4 years old, I knew I wanted to do what I'm doing for a living. So I'm really blessed, because most voice actors stumble into it. Either they're an actor like my buddy Mark Hamill, who was an amazing talent, but also overexposed as Luke Skywalker. And so he went back in and got into voice acting for a good portion of his career and became, a really wonderful voice actor. Yeah. But most voice actors stumble into it. I knew since I was 4 that I wanted to be a voice actor, and I've studied this with a passion.
You already answered question number 2, but what was it that happened when you were 4 years old that made that light turn on?
Well, there's even videos on my YouTube and my Rumble channels that show this, because it's a piece of a stage show that I do. I have a stage show called Talking to Myself, where I go through my life as a voice actor and stuff. But so when I was 4, I wanted to be a doctor. My mom worked at a hospital, and so she got me the little fake doctor bag and tongue depressor and stethoscope. And
Do you
all that
like
stuff.
the big mirror thing? And
all this. I had all the thing on the head and all.
Yeah,
that.
right.
And there was a motorcycle accident out in front of our apartment one day. Nothing serious. The guy was okay. He just kind of wiped out. I would say nothing fractured except maybe his pride. And I pushed my way down through the crowd with my bag and put on my stuff and went through there and looked at him and saw the man sitting there on the ground. And I said, I'd like to help you, but I'm an obstetrician. And because I wanted to be a baby doctor. And I, honest to God, this is in my baby book, and my brother and sister will attest to it because they're 5 and 6 years older than me. And pushed my way back through the crowd and went up and went on with my day. And my mom said,
you literally came down just to deliver a one-liner.
Yeah. And everybody laughed. And my mom said, you know, if you're going to be a doctor, you got to help everybody no matter what. And I said, well, I made them laugh. I'll be an entertainer. And I set my goals on being a comedian and then a voice actor. Somewhere along the line, when I was very early on, I realized, unlike most kids, I guess, that there was, I think maybe I saw a video of Mel Blanc or Don Messick in the room doing the voices. And it clicked for me that, oh, that's Bugs Bunny. You know, that's him doing the voice. And I went, I want to do that. So I just started mimicking people. And I mean, you know, Cagney and Bogart and Laurel and Hardy. I was, you know, doing all those. And Jimmy Durante, good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are, you know, and Fred Flintstone. And little did I know I'd become Fred Flintstone one day. But so I really, there was something about it. And there's actually a deeper story to it than that, that I can get to later or now, but
please, by all means, you know, part of this show is just about peeling back those layers a lot so that people can understand a little bit of the deeper process that goes on. I think that a lot of people that look at how people have success as an actor, artist, whatever it is, they think that it's so simple or that things come easily. That's not necessarily the case, you know?
No, you know, and so it was very much not the case. I mean, you know, I loved doing voices. I loved recreating scenes for my friends, you know, when I was a kid. And we'd watch, well, wait a second, Back to the Future. Well, Doc, this is heavy. You mean to tell me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean? The way I see it, Marty, if you're going to build a time machine into a car, why not do it with some style? And I would just recreate the scenes that I saw of the movies, and everybody loved me. You know, it was just, I was a goofball.
Yeah.
And then I went into the local radio station at 17, and after I'd been doing stand-up for a year at 16, and in local clubs trying to get in on open mic nights, and I went in and asked, how do you get into radio? And I literally started sweeping up for free, handing out bumper stickers at concerts, and watching the DJs do their shows every day. And then, and I'm actually, I don't say this with any pride, but I'm a high school dropout. So I left school after 10th grade and got into radio and became a DJ, and then got into radio comedy and writing and voicing and producing comedy for radio stations all over the country. Everything from Howard Stern to Mark and Brian out here to Rick Dees and all in between. And so I would be the voice on their things doing stuff and people wouldn't know it.
It's so fascinating when I've listened to you on your podcast, like, you know, and when you get a chance, please listen to James's stuff. It's so good because it's literally, and please, I mean, no offense with this, it's only the highest regards. You know, it's Phil Hendry to me, you know, at times where it's like, you know, conversation. And it's so funny because you had a thing where you, on one of the episodes I was listening to, where it was literally a radio guy that was talking to the different versions of yourself. I think that's so fascinating, you know, about all of the, and even hearing those characters that you have as the radio DJ, you know, it must have been very interesting being around those guys. You know.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a whole other story of my life too, of being a DJ and being the night rocker and the overnight guy, and you put on your big voice, hey, you know, it's me, you know, and then I come out and hi, how's it going? It's me, you know. And so I loved the fact that you could trick people, you could do things. I could call in if I didn't have callers, I could be the caller, and so that's what I started doing. And so that's what my podcast is. It's called Talking to Myself, and it's just me talking to me. All the characters on the show are me. So there's Hank the engineer, and he goes like, hey, James, let me fix that wire. Okay, yeah, and he gets on the mic. Hello, testing, 1 2 1 2. You know, and he's obnoxious because I worked with a lot of engineers that were kind of that guy. And then there's Billy, the intern on the show, who gets me coffee, and I don't drink coffee. I know, but I got you coffee just in case you ever want to try to drink coffee. Oh, it's okay, Billy. I don't need it. No, but if you need it, it's there. Okay, thank you, Billy. And so there's just all these characters that I just have conversations with, and then characters that call in, and I have it rigged to where I have a mic that's a special mic, and it sounds like I'm on the phone, and I just switch back and forth like Phil Hendry. Funny thing about Phil, so when I was working in radio, I worked in a studio, and it was Studio A of the Premier Radio Networks, and that was the room where I produced all my stuff. And I would do that during the day, and then in the afternoon, Phil Hendry would come in and do his show in the same studio, and I would watch Phil. And I was always impressed by his ability to switch back and forth in that too.
For our listeners who don't know who Phil Hendry is, and also the people watching, Phil would have a talk show here in Los Angeles, KFI, and I'll tell you, it took me weeks. Paul, are you familiar with Phil Hendry at all?
No.
So Phil Hendry, like brilliant, and he must have started this out of Florida, but and a lot of these radio guys travel all over the country. But he would have things where he would be, call in show, and he would get the craziest person that would call in, and as it would go on, this person that was calling in would just go so insane, and you would realize it was him as a different voice. So he would have like a phone set up, and he was able to switch back and forth.
That he was able to mute his mic and go right to it.
It took me 2 weeks of listening to him before I finally figured it out. And it's so funny with him because it was one of those things where he would take the strangest scenarios. He had a guy that was calling in and saying, I'm going to sue the bank because I got robbed at an ATM. And then like 30 minutes into the call, you realized he had taken money out of the ATM, and he saw a couple of homeless guys like 100 yards away, and he waved the money in their face and said, I work for a living. I mean, he'd do these outlandish bits, but people would call in. Then he'd get real callers that would call in and would
call and be so upset if the person that was calling in and his reaction. Yeah, it was
furious. And Phil would even, over time, he would even admit what he would do. He would tell people what he was doing, and it wouldn't matter because there's always somebody that would be listening that would say, I'm going to call in and give them a piece of my mind. It's fascinating, James, when you do this with the different characters, because I wonder about your process with it. Is there a version of this where you're almost working it out? When you're having these conversations with these characters, is there versions of yourself that you're literally talking to yourself?
Yeah. I mean, so I do it all in real time. There's no editing or anything. If you listen to the podcast, it's all in real time. And I don't script it. I don't know where I'm going to go because those characters live in my head. And so I just ask them questions, So Hank, what did you do this weekend? Well, we like the TVs. You like TV. It's just TV, Hank. It's not TV. Well, TVs. And my wife Maureen, she puts on the shows and we watch the things. And I like the Designing Women. Hank, that hasn't been on in like decades. Oh. Well, but that and I will just go whatever is on my head, at the top of my head, and I'll riff. And I do what makes me laugh. And I figure if it makes me laugh, it makes other people laugh. And that's just kind of how it is. And I find that a lot of people enjoy it, and they like laughing at me and my characters too. And it's just I find so much pleasure in it. I really do. It's a lot of fun, and I think that is one of those creative things where it's kind of like the story you were talking about of he was whistling. I love that story, by the way. Where afterwards he realized he was whistling. I find that I'm lighter when I do these things, and I find also it's that freedom. It's like I tell people with voiceover. If you want to start getting into voiceover, get comic books, get Dr. Seuss, and start walking around your house and reading them out loud and doing voices. You're going to find, for one, that it teaches you how to read cold, but it also allows you to come up with characters. It allows you to get rid of those inhibitions, because as a voice actor, you can't have any. You can't worry about making a funny face or, sounding weird or having your voice crack or do whatever. You just have to go with it.
Yes.
But you also discover so many new layers of your creativity when you do that, even if that's not the end goal.
Right.
Even if that's not what the book, you're writing a book about, serious stuff, but you have a moment in your day where you get to do that. Boy, it's like taking a shower, clearing off the cobwebs.
Oh my gosh. It's so, so good. There has to be this, I think that there's this moment that happens where as you are creating and as you are learning it, to your point, James, you have to get to a point where you go, I just got to do this. Like, I got to turn off this editor that's back there, or this other side of me that's kind of going, you're no good. What are you doing? And it's like going, I don't have time for you right now. I literally don't. And I've got to move forward, and I've just got to commit, and I've just got to do this. Was there a turning point that happened with you with that at all? Or was it just doing it constantly?
It's funny that you say that. The first thing that comes to mind is when I was 16 and I was doing stand-up comedy. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was a huge Steve Martin fan and Robin Williams fan and Robert Klein and all these wonderful comedians I grew up watching. And Johnny Carson, I wanted to go on Johnny Carson's show and all that. I just loved them all. And I remember doing stand-up and bombed. It was like after the third or fourth time I did stand up, and I bombed for the first time. And I realized I bombed because I was trying to please them. I wasn't trying to make myself laugh. I wasn't doing any of it for me. I was doing it to go, look, I can do this. And I think that's what we all do as performers is we go, look, I can do this. I want to please you. I want to make you okay. And once you get rid of that and go, I'm just going to do this. I don't know, the dam breaks free and you're able to just create so much more. And I stopped worrying about it. I thought if I make myself laugh, and sure enough, I found that I just didn't really bomb as much if I got up on stage and just tried to enjoy myself.
I think there's something to that, right? Where there's a moment of just going, you know what, I'm just going to show up. I just have to do my best work. There's people that we've known, you know, Paul and I have done work over the years with Disney and have had a number of people that get so focused, especially in live performance. We do a lot of this stuff down in the theme parks, and there'd be a lot of people that would get so focused on if one person in the back wasn't smiling or wasn't laughing and getting like completely turned upside down. I would do shows in the Golden Horseshoe Saloon that were like, it would bring down the house. It would like kill. And there would be people that I would walk off stage and they'd go, can you believe that guy in the back? And like, they would completely ignore a room full of 300 people just laughing their tails off. And they were so hyper focused on that thing. And it's like going, what are you doing, man? There's a quote that I've said before on the show. Jeff Corey, who is a famous actor, he's passed away now, but he said this one line in one of his books, which is, if you have a theater full of 100 people, realize that there's going to be one person in there, no matter what you say or do, they'll never like you. It doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter what you can do. So why would you shift and bend everything to try and please that one person when you're staying further away from what the truth is of what you're doing, and also ignoring, hey, I'm affecting other people in a good way, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's like that one thumbs down you get on that video that you love as you post, you know, and it's like, oh, I get that all the time. There's one person that gives me the thumbs down, and you just have to go, well, okay, I'm not their cup of tea, but it's funny, you know, for many years I hosted an event at Disney World called Star Wars Weekends, and because of Star Wars, and we would perform in the premiere theater there, and you know, it was a 1,500 seat theater, and you could focus in on that one person with their arms crossed, and I remember getting stuck on that once and going, what are you doing? And you catch it because you start trying to make them, and you don't realize you're trying then, and you're not just being. And I think that's the biggest thing for creatives is just be who you are.
I think it's kind of that a microcosm of what we've talked about on the show before, like doing improv. I do an online improv show every Saturday night through Zoom, and we have a bunch of seasoned vets who have been doing it for 20, 30 years, and some people who have just started doing it when we got locked down in Zoom and are learning. But the one thing that like I noticed kind of right off the bat, especially like in this Zoom like format, you're looking at everybody's faces while it's happening. Like you're not always doing that on stage. And so when we're playing that game 99, you get something from the audience, spatulas, 99 spatulas walk into a bar, and you see the people who just have a spark of a joke beginning and just go out and do it, and it comes along the way. And you see the people who are like, oh, is this going to be good enough? Should I got an idea, but should I I don't want to be bad. And it's just that thing, like Kevin and I talked about it briefly before, just like it's improv. You got to realize what you're doing. And the part of the fun of it, all of the joy of it, is that it's just happening in front of you. As much as you stand back and go, ooh, how will this be judged? That's going to put a damper on any creative process, whether it's writing, anything that you're doing. You need to just listen to your heart and do like act on the joy of it in order to just like give it truth.
That's so true, man. Yeah. And I think it's so freeing. And I'm sure you guys have seen it, where somebody actually, where it clicks and they do it too. I've been in a room where that happens, and you see them kind of come to life for once. That's a beautiful thing too. So
it's pretty amazing. So now listen, if there's anyone that is more transparent about the work of a voice actor, it is you, James. I will tell you, I've been looking at your YouTube videos, your podcast stuff, and I can't say it enough. Producer Craig's going to put some links there in the YouTube stuff, But please take a look. If you want to know what the life of a working voiceover actor is, and you're not going to get all the information just from this podcast, please check out James Arnold Taylor's videos that he posts on YouTube, because you really break it down.
Thanks.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because what's the one thing that you usually have a bunch of people, I'm sure that you get swamped with this. I want to be a voiceover actor. How do I do it? What do I do? Oh, it must be the easiest thing in the world. I got a great voice. Nana says I'm great.
My favorite one I've had said to me is, well, any idiot could do that. Or me. But it is one of those jobs I think that everybody wants to do. It's funny, when I was in the 80s doing stand-up comedy, everybody wanted to be a stand-up comic, and then I became a voice actor, and it is one of those things that everybody is fascinated by.
What do you think that is? Why do you think that they want to?
Well, sadly, I think a lot of it is, celebrity has made it, out there more, but it's also made it look kind of easy. Oh, I don't have to do as much. I just get on a mic and I do some funny voices, and then they animate it. Everybody else does the work, and it's like, it's not that. Well, I always tell people, it's like, it's about having all of it running in your head before it comes out of your mouth. It's being able to read anything and make it sound like it's just coming right out of your soul. And it's being able to do it in, whatever accent they want, whatever voice they want. If I got to be, like I do the show Johnny Test, and I'm an 11-year-old kid, and I got to sound like Johnny, and I also have to sound like a 70-year-old British man, well, then they'll have a conversation together. And you just have to be able to just morph into these things without any inhibitions, as I've said before. And that part doesn't come easy, but I think a lot of people think in their heads that it does. And until they hear themselves on the mic, then they go, oh. So again, it's one of those things where I have to say to people, if you really have a passion for it, pursue it. I mean, because, I didn't get any special treatment or anything. I just went out there and did it. And I found that most people that do, it's the same thing. They took to it because they weren't scared.
Yes.
And you can't be afraid to look silly. And you have to be able, you do have to have, some ability to morph your voice around, but not like what I do. There's very few people in Hollywood, even in the voiceover community, that do multiple voices like that. Most people do. And I always tell people, you could have a very successful career as a voice actor with one voice.
Right.
And people forget that. But, you could do commercial work, you could do narration work, you could do promo work, and have just one voice that makes you a great living. And then you can do things with it, variations of it, add a little texture to it, bring it up a little higher, give it an accent, whatever. But that ability to do characters and doubling people, like I've spent a lot of my career doubling celebrities. So if Christopher Walken isn't able to do his voice, I come in and do it. It's crazy. Or Jay Baruchel from How to Train Your Dragon. So I'm Hiccup a lot of times when Jay isn't. Or like I say, Michael J. Fox or David Spade. Yeah, and you are, and bye-bye. So I come in and fill in for them. Johnny Depp. I've been Captain Jack Sparrow a lot of times. And, it's a fun way to make a living, but it's also, it's something that requires, a lot of skill in it too. I'm not saying, I have so much skill, but the people that I work with, I'm amazed at the abilities they have.
Yes.
Voiceover is really a neat job. It's a wonderful job.
James, I think there's two things that come to mind for me as you're talking about this, because at least seeing some of the videos, and maybe it's particular to you, it seems it's a very physically demanding career.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's a lot of that, and I know even now as you're recording with us, you're in a standing position. I've seen some things where you've had to record and be in a sitting position, not the best for you. No. You're always staying hydrated. I always notice that, right? So can you speak to that? I mean, the physicality that's involved in it.
Well, I think most people don't think of it as that, because again, they think they're just in a room talking on a microphone and headphones, and it's real easy in that regard. But there is a lot of physicality, because all you have is your voice. So like right now, I'm in my studio, I'm in my control room, but my booth is over there, but I have a mic in front of me, very similarly the way I would in a session. There's a mic straight ahead of me, a boom mic right in front of me here. And so all my energy has to go to that. That's my dance partner. And I can use whatever I can, as long as I'm wearing quiet clothing. That's another trick.
I see you take stuff off of your wrists, right?
T-shirt and jeans. Yeah, you don't want the watch on. I would take the watch off if I was doing a session, so I can do this, because I am So I do the voice for Fox Animation Domination. The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, coming up next on Fox. And you see what I just did? I put
Yes.
my one hand here and I did my other one here because I
Yes.
can't seem to do that voice without doing those things.
Is
There's
that
a
an
lot of
is that
physical.
is that a little Don Pardo maybe, or is it
It's a
just
little Don Pardo and a little Gary Owens, and combined together, you get my voice for The Simpsons. And yeah, I like to combine characters to make different ones. And I think that's what we do as voice actors a lot too. But the amount of what happens is, so I'm standing, I'm very comfortable standing doing voiceover work. But what we don't realize is, and you guys would know this, like the Alexander technique, all that stuff of like being aware of your body and what you're doing, because we as actors and people pleasers, we're people pleasers, so we creep up. If you watch a brand new voice actor in a session, and you'll see them by the end of the session, they are so tense because they just want to please that director
Yes.
and get it all right and get those
Right.
lines, and they're this, and I'll put my hand on them, just breathe.
Yeah.
I spend so much time deep breathing and just
Yes.
relaxing and resetting during a session every few lines, because otherwise you'll wreck your body. I mean, I tell people, go in your closet, in a walk-in closet at home or a small room, and get like, War and Peace, and scream it at the top of your lungs for 4 hours and tell me how you feel. And
Well,
there's a lot of physicality in
yes.
it.
Yes.
So it's, or like get in a fight with somebody for a half an hour
Yeah.
and see how you feel. That's what
I used
voiceover
to
is.
I used to describe it as it's not in the same realm, but the performance that we would do in the park, you're going out, you're doing 8 shows.
Oh
They're
yeah,
usually 20, 25-minute shows or whatever.
amazing.
And sometimes you get people that would come by and just go, "Oh, well, that's so super simple." And then you would literally put it in terms like this. Hey, you do PowerPoint presentations, right? Like you do if you have to do a presentation or something, that's challenging, right? If you had to do like a 25 or 30 minute, how about if I asked you to do that all 8 hours for the rest of
Just
the day? It's like,
nonstop, and
right? It's just like, oh,
reacting to everybody else and what's happening,
that's
and
it.
remembering those cues and stuff. And again, it's not like I'm saying like, oh, we're brilliant, but it's something you learn to do, but to know that it requires a lot and a full concentration of what you're doing. It really does. Because as voice actor too, I always say, whatever I'm
Mhm.
reading the line underneath it in my brain as I'm reading the one with my mouth.
Yep.
So you can get to it so you don't fumble over the next line.
Wow.
And it's an art, but if you learn it, it's great fun.
That
Super good.
is super impressive. Like I can't even. That makes my head hurt just thinking about that. But another thing that like I'm just so impressed with about voice actors is the use of imagination and how integrated that is with um, the difference between an actor on the set of a movie interacting with other actors. Like it's so cliche, but it's so true. Like so much of acting is reacting, and
Right.
when you're doing this, you're seeing the entire world, you're seeing all of the characters in your head, and that's what's bringing about your performance, that and all of the prep work you've done, obviously. And I love that you talked about the physicality because my daughter, excuse me, she's 6. She just got into movies and stuff, and she just wrapped her first movie this past March. And so
Wow.
during COVID, we've had to do some ADR and stuff from home.
Yeah.
Um, but my wife, the LAPD officer, grew up doing voice work. She was Lucy on the
Wow.
Peanuts forever.
Oh
She
wow.
did a bunch All Dogs Go to Heaven, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So she was actually able to like get Everly's my daughter, like this session started with her first like doing these lines into the
Yep.
microphone, staring at the wall.
Yeah.
And then like it took like my wife saying, okay, but imagine you're on set in the scene, see her saying this, hear him saying that, and then say your line. And then
Yeah.
like it changed her physicality, it
Yeah.
changed the entire delivery of it. And
That's
you do
great.
that like with just different worlds that you're just imagining in your mind as you're doing it, reading ahead, bringing all that. Like the amount of work involved is just off the charts.
It's funny. Well, no, and that's fantastic to hear about her. But it's also one of those things where where it really hit me was when I started working on shows where I was working with on-camera actors, and I was always, like very impressed with them, and I'd love working with them. But they'd get in there, and every time they'd all turn to you midway through and go, "This is harder than it looks." And I'd also get a kick out of like I'm sitting there staring at my script, mic in front of me and I'm keeping my head centered on the mic and I'm reading and they're next to me and I can feel them looking at me as they're delivering lines, you know? And I'm going like, I'm not looking at you because I'm playing it out in my head.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And then they're trying, they want that back, right? Because they're
Right.
used to
Of
that. But voice
course.
actors are like, I'm seeing Bugs Bunny in my head. I'm seeing
Yes.
Daffy Duck. I'm seeing whoever the character. I'm seeing Obi-Wan. I'm not seeing you,
No.
you know. And it's a very different art form in that, but it's fun. And I think it's probably why I ended up doing a lot of doubling for celebrities because most of them are kind of uncomfortable in their own skin when it comes to doing that. A lot of video games and a lot of
Sure.
movies where I will do their efforts and their fighting sounds and things because
Right.
they don't want to do it. They get on a mic in a quiet room, you know, all alone, and they got to go, and they feel stupid, you know. And they can
The
do it
walk-in,
in
the
front of
walk-in
camera.
gut punch. Oh,
Yeah, and that's part of a voice actor's life. Just whatever. I'm on fire. Okay, whoo, ha, ha, you know, I get punched. You know, I mean, it's like it doesn't matter. We love it. So
oh my
it's two
gosh.
different worlds, but it's very cool that she got to do that.
Absolutely brilliant. You know, there's something I want to touch on, James, which we talked a little bit about before we started on the show. You know, and again, I'm so grateful for your transparency that you have on your show, because you really talk about the things that you tap into for yourself in order to just continue on in
Yeah.
in this industry, right? Because it can be extremely challenging. There's something that I want to speak specifically about. You came into my radar just a couple of years ago. Now, obviously, with the Clone Wars. Sorry, I'm going to be a nerd for a second.
No,
Sorry, sorry.
that's
All
all
right.
right.
The Clone Wars is an absolutely brilliant show. I mean, when I first saw the movie that came out, it was okay. Well, let's see how this is, and
Yeah.
especially as the series went on, you know, with Dave Filoni doing it, and your job as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and just all of the work in that. Those shows are so brilliantly written and just absolutely so amazing. But all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, I had a friend of mine that gave me this book. Now, years ago, and I talk about it here on the show, that one of the things that I use in my life is my faith. I'm a Christian Catholic, and it's just part of who I am. And years ago, some people here that are listening may be familiar with the Artist's Way by Julia Cameron that came out years ago. And you know, and again, to her credit, like a very good book. But specifically, the stuff that really works for me is really trying to tap into stuff that speaks specifically to my Christianity. A couple of years ago, I had a friend of mine that handed me a book that was called The Story of With by
Yeah.
Alan Arnold. And
Yeah.
I read this book, The Story of With by Alan Arnold, and it's this beautiful allegory, but
Yeah.
also with lessons of specifically inviting God into your artistic process.
Yeah.
And in the book, I see that the book is dedicated, that there's a dedication that's you are in this, right?
Yeah.
That you're, and all of a sudden I start looking through this stuff and I see that there's a connection between you and Alan Arnold, who wrote this book, and that you also did the audio book version of it as well.
Recorded it right here, right in this room. Yeah.
My gosh, would you mind talking a little bit about this? Because I specifically, I don't, you know, we don't have to go too deep into it, but for me, that book really spoke to me about the idea of inviting God into part of my process, and realizing that these skills and gifts that I was given were for a bigger purpose. Because it's so difficult, particularly, it's a thing that I talk about consistently on this podcast, which is you are given these skills and talents for a reason,
Yeah.
and to use them for a reason. And I think that sometimes so many of us shy away from it, or think, no, I can't, or it's not the correct thing to do. Anyway, those are just a few of my thoughts. I hope I gave you a few sparks to
Yeah.
work with there.
No, absolutely. I mean, Alan is a dear friend, and I met Alan through his work with John Eldridge, who's another brilliant writer and theologian, and he works with him at Ransomed Heart Ministry, or Wild at Heart Ministries now is what they call it, based off of John's book, Wild at Heart. And Alan wrote this book years ago, and he said, you know, would you read? I got to be one of the first people to read it and such before it went out, and I just thought it was so great because it was an allegory of this character, this gal that she's lost. She thinks she's got it all together, but she knows she doesn't, and she's lost, and she's trying to find her way. And then it's just this, she's on a road and run out of gas, and it's kind of that, great story. And what do you do? And then she has father issues. Her father disappeared, and it's this wonderful story that catches you up in it. But it also is to say, what are you doing? I think, how often do we stop and go, what are you doing when you're feeling those, we talked about earlier, feeling kind of depressed or down or whatever, to put on the brakes for a second and refocus. And that's, I think, really the best part of that book is each chapter even does that. It kind of refocuses you and goes, what are you doing creatively? How are you doing it? Are you inviting God into it? Are you being accountable to your creativity with people around you, friends and family, and then your creator? And I think it's a beautiful story in that. And then also the other parts of the book are the factual stuff. Because I love, like, I don't read as many novels. I read more like books that are just, not textbooks, but I like nonfiction. I like, all that underlining and stuff. And so this book is a great combination of both. Alan really managed to put it together. And then my dear friend Catherine Tabor, who was the voice of Padme Amidala on the Clone Wars, and she's on the Loud House, the cartoon Loud House on Nickelodeon. She's Lori Loud and all these other great characters. Her and I got together and did this book for Alan, the audio version, here in my studio. And we just had a great time putting it together with him. And Alan's just a really creative guy. I'd love to see him on your show with y'all. He said he'd love to come on. And he has a brand new book about chaos and dealing with chaos in our lives. And it's really a great book. And I'll let him come on and tell you about it. But I highly recommend everybody look up Alan Arnold on your Audible accounts or on your Amazon accounts and get his book, The Story of With, and his new book about chaos as well. And it's amazing how often I found that people in my life come in and they're a person of faith, or they, I am a person of faith. I've been a Christian for a good portion of my life since I was in my early 20s. And I've never been the same once I kind of allowed myself to trust God in that. And I've found a lot of freedom lately on my YouTube and my Rumble channel and my various social media, talking about that with people. Because I think, especially right now, it's just been, I never try to push it on people, but I just try to show a normal life of faith. And because my day-to-day is with God and my family's as well. So I just try to portray that the best I can to people and try to be really honest, because my job isn't to judge anybody. My job isn't to do anything except try to be the best I can. And that's what my faith is all about. So I love getting to talk about it. I'm grateful for you allowing me to talk about it and share, but also to share Alan's book and stuff too.
Well, it's absolutely amazing. Honestly, I can't point people enough towards your show to listen to James talking about those examples. And we don't have to get into it here. James is very transparent about struggles and challenges that he's gone through his life, and definitely his faith has played a part of it. And if there's somebody that's talking it right, I think that's the thing, especially when it's part of the reason why I'm even bringing it up here on the show, is like, we ain't perfect, right? And there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of stumbling that we have along the way, and God knows that I've had it happen too. But part of the way that we do is by showing some of the stuff that we get through it. Even the stuff I've been talking about on the show for the last few weeks of going through the fog, wouldn't have been able to do that without my faith and my communication and fellowshipping with people and talking with people and getting that out, not complaining, but just kind of like getting through it. And I think it's so challenging. A point that I wanted to bring up about the book with Alan Arnold, which is a very scary thing for artists, right? There's a concept that he talks about in that book that when I read it, I thought, that's a scary question for me. And it was, and I might be misquoting it. You can tell me, James, and go, you got the entire book wrong, Kevin. That's not what not what the book is about, right? But it's this concept of, would you be willing, and especially in our career and our culture that is about, I want to do it because I want the fame and the fortune and all this other stuff, right? I think that those are things that come with it. But Alan poses this: are you willing to do your art if the only people that were able to enjoy it were you and God?
Yeah.
And for me, that's a scary concept, right?
Mm.
Because it really gets down to the heart of what it is of like going, hold on, man, I got to invite you into this to make sure that it is the most authentic, real, true part of what I'm trying to put out there. And if you get that part of it right, the other stuff comes. Right. But I think
Yeah.
that sometimes we're chasing all of this other stuff. Like, I want this. And it's like, no, 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 no. You got to get down to what the base. And if you can get that part of it right,
Yeah.
everything else will click in, you know?
Boy, I think that, no, I think you summed the book up very well with that question, and certainly is something that Alan poses, and I think he'd be thrilled to hear that. I know he'll be happy when he listens to this episode as well. But that really is it, and it kind of comes full circle to even what we've been talking about of as a comic where I realized I got to do this for myself because it's also me and God, because I have that one-on-one relationship with God. So it's like, if I'm doing it to try to please everybody else, it's going to go nowhere.
Yeah.
But if I'm trying to just be what I am.
Yes.
And the funny thing is where I said it's a long story, I'll just give you this. I'll try to make it short.
You could give it all. I don't care.
But
I don't think Paul will stop you either.
yeah. Well, when Paul was asking about, like the story of my life in the beginning. So I was raised with a single mom. For the most part, my folks were divorced when I was about a month old, and I started life living in a car, and then we moved to like a 1-bedroom apartment, and had an older brother and sister, and product of divorce and all of that, and a lot of violence, a lot of bad stuff I got to see in my life, and always never really had a connection with my dad. Years later, I went to, it's been therapy for years. I highly recommend people get talk therapy. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Amen.
And trying to say, why do I have no relationship with my father? And the crazy thing was I lost my voice to toxic mold about 15 years ago. And we had bought a house because we were about to adopt our daughter. And we were adopting her from China, and we bought this new house. It was going to be great and all of that. And it was a money pit. It made the Tom Hanks, Shelley Long movie look like nothing. It was a absolute money pit. Everything that could go wrong. And we had black toxic mold growing in the walls that I discovered. And I breathed it in, got in my bloodstream. I lost my voice. It was at the height of my career. And for about 3 months, I was pretty much this. And
oh my gosh.
And I really had to ask God, what's up?
Yeah.
And I remember the day I lost my voice, and the doctor told me, it was February 13th, 2005. And he said, you got to stop talking. And I was like, please don't let this be the worst day of my life. Right. God, please. And 6 months later, we got the paperwork for our daughter and saying they've placed us with a child. And we got her paperwork, and I looked at her birthday, and it was February 13th, 2005.
Get out of here.
The world changed, and he made it the best day of my life, not the worst day of my life. And then, from there, I changed my life, my diet, everything in my life shifted. But it got me questioning why I had always had a bad relationship with my father. And all these things link into each other. And turns out at 42, I realized and found out that the person I thought was my father my whole life was not my father. The reason why he didn't like me was because he didn't think I was his, and he finally admitted it to my therapist. And I found this out at 42, and we did a DNA test and found out that he was not my father. And so I found out that my real father actually did exactly what I do for a living. He was about 5'4", as I am. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and worked in radio and hosted TV shows in the 50s and 60s, and did exactly what I do. And,
wow.
So I didn't know that all this was built into me. You know? So
full body. I just got full body chills like 3 times during that story.
Here's the crazy part of it also, Paul, is that the day I got the DNA results was my daughter's adoption day. So we already had a connection of me losing my voice and her birthday. So we got her on October 31st, Halloween. That was the day. We were in China. We went to China. We got her. They don't celebrate Halloween there. So, it's just another day. And we got our daughter there. So every year we celebrate Halloween as adoption day at our house. And we were having a little celebration that day. And I checked my phone because Fox was going to need me to do some promos. And there was the results for the DNA test. And I looked at them, and it said 99.99% chance that Leroy Taylor is not the father of James Arnold Taylor.
Wow.
And my life changed. And the weird thing was, so this is my daughter and I were connected, and
Mm.
my daughter will never know her birth parents because she's from China, and
Yeah.
that's, she was found in a marketplace at 10 days old, abandoned. And her and I have this connection now to where I never met my father. He passed away many years ago because he was twice the age of my mom.
Wow.
And I met him once when I was 7. I didn't know that I was meeting him because I didn't know he was my father.
Yeah.
I met him once, and yeah, it's one of those crazy things. So her and I have this connection now. On Adoption Day is the day I learned who my real father was, and I lost my voice on the day she was born, and it's a weird connection. Wow. But
it's I will tell you, James, I'm so grateful that you shared these stories here, because it is an example of the moments that we are going through in our life, right? Yeah. The moments that seem like the worst, that it's the end of the line, that everything is turning upside down, that you have no idea what God has in store for you, what beautiful thing he can make out of this, right? And I've had these moments, man. I have had these moments in my life. I've had these moments of surviving cancer when I was 23 years old and thinking just like, what am I supposed to do? And then really changing my life and really getting closer with my relationship with God. I remember the night that we had our son diagnosed with autism, at 3.5, and holding him and thinking, what's going to happen with my life? And the beauty and the joy that has come out of that, and the soothing mom that he's been in our life. Yeah. And there's times where I go, I don't know if I'd want it any other way. Right.
Right.
This beauty and this pain, as much as, especially in the season that we're in, right? Yeah. When we have all of this stuff, this is a perfect episode for me to have tonight. Right. But this idea of the amount of pain and frustration and all this stuff that we can go through, and God is right there saying, I can make it better. I can make it even better. Just trust me. Just trust me and go with this.
It's a workout. It's, I always tell people it's strength training, because I think so many of us want to give up when we get the hard stuff. But instead, I try to tell people, remember that this is actually there to build you up into something better, because it's just like when you work a muscle and it hurts, and then later it's stronger. You're doing that with your life. So when you're hitting those down parts, it's like, try to rejoice, because man, what's coming next? It's hard to live in that, but it's the lessons I've been given through my life over the last 20 years or so have been that. So
I'm so incredibly grateful that you shared that tonight. I'll tell you what an effect you had. I'm looking in our YouTube chats right now, and like people are just going, oh my gosh. Even my son Matty showed up, and he said, I can't even make jokes during this. You're dropping so many truth bombs here. Like literally, you've been touching a lot of people during this, James. Thank you for thank you for your vulnerability and your transparency with this. My gosh, what an incredible guest you have been tonight. Listen, James, is there anything specific that you want to let our listeners or viewers know about that's coming up with you? I know that there's been some changes that have been going on with your Jat video blog, right?
Yeah.
Some of those things. Oh my gosh, I didn't even get to touch on this either. Guys, please, is it jamesarnoldtaylor.com? Is that your website?
Yeah.
So if you go over to jamesarnoldtaylor.com, not only does Jat, excuse me, I'm just going to call you that. Not only does Jat have all the stuff that's there, but Jat has also written a daily devotional that he's written. So
I just happen to have it right here. Yeah.
Jat 365. So inspirational thoughts that you can go through there. And he's also got art that he has done, paintings that he's done with certain scripture verses or things like that really touch him, that he's just turned into these beautiful works of art. So please check that out. What else can you promo, sir?
Well, I do try to really interact with my fan base and my community as much as I can, and I do that on my YouTube and now my Rumble channel. Rumble is a alternative to YouTube as well, and I'm trying it out, and the folks there have been very kind to let me start moving a lot of my videos over there, because I have literally hundreds and hundreds of videos, including a daily version of my book on YouTube. That you could watch it every single day with me. You could go through a whole year of daily inspirations. They're about 90 seconds. I read a page, and I give you some inspiration and challenge you. And that's on my YouTube channel as well.
That's great.
A lot of stuff to just try to inspire people. And so, my social media is there, but you can go to jamesarnoldtaylor.com, follow me there, find my YouTube, find my Rumble, find my Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. I'm also trying to take a break from a lot of them as I can, but I
Sure.
also try to put a video out at least once a week where I try to just inspire people, because especially right now, people are
Yes.
they're confused, they're hurting, they're struggling, and they
Yes.
need to know that, my job as an entertainer isn't to talk about things that aren't entertainment. And so I always try to, except for my faith, because that's me. So on my vlogs, I talk about who I am. But in my work, I just try to just entertain and make people laugh, because that's what got me through everything in my life was entertainment. So that's what I hope to do for everybody.
Great.
So check out jamesarnoldtaylor.com. Find me on Parler, on Rumble, on Twitter and Instagram, and all those, YouTube as well. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be with you all here.
Huge. Please check out his stuff. Incredibly inspirational. Just come on. If you want to pick him up, that's the place to go, for goodness sake. What do you say to that, Paul?
I just can't thank you enough, James. It's been
Thanks,
such a pleasure.
man.
And I agree with a lot of people here in this YouTube chat saying like this episode was everything we hoped for and more.
Okay.
And we just thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. Any last voices? I could do Gilbert Godfrey saying this. This is so creative and good. I like to just talk soft about it. That's
I think we just lost 100 viewers with that one. So very good, James. It has been a pleasure. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for listening to the show. If you have enjoyed this show, you can go and check out other episodes that we have. You can go over to yourcreativejourneypodcast.com. You can find us anywhere on Stitcher, Spotify. The best way to help us out is by going to Apple Podcasts. If you go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a positive review. And if you leave us a positive review, we will read it on the show. We don't have any this week, but it's just a way to help us out with the algorithm so that more people can hear it. Regardless, wherever you heard this show, if you found this inspirational, share it with other people, okay? So they can find it out. That's all I got this week. James, thank you so much. Paul, love you dearly. Deal with that.
Love you guys. And thank you, Kevin. And thank you again, James. It was absolute pleasure.
absolutely. I should say, may the force be with you all.
Amen. All right. I tell you what, we're going to end everything here. We're going to end our audio podcast. We're going to end the YouTube stream as well. Thanks everybody for all of your time. You guys are amazing. We hope that you all have a great week. God bless. We will talk to you later. Bye now. Just going to end our live stream.